The map on the dashboard was crinkled, stained with coffee, and, according to Maya, completely unnecessary. "I know this trail like the back of my hand, Maya said, her hand resting comfortably on the gear stick of their battered Subaru. She offered a reassuring grin, the kind that crinkled the corners of her eyes, a sight that never failed to make Elena's stomach do a little flip. Elena looked out the window at the towering wall of green that was the Blackwood National Forest. "It's not your navigation I'm worried about. It's the fact that we haven't seen a cell tower in 3 hours or another human being in 2. "That's the point, babe," Maya said, reaching over to squeeze Elena's knee. "Just us. No emails, no deadlines, no city noise. Just the two of us and the trees." They were a study in contrasts. Maya was rugged, dressed in flannel and utility pants, her boots scuffed from years of trails. She moved with a kinetic energy, always ready to climb or jump. Elena was softer, an illustrator by trade, wearing a knitted beanie and clutching a sketchbook. This trip was Maya's anniversary gift to Elena. 3 days hiking the Deep Creek Loop, a trail known for its difficulty and its breathtaking isolation. They parked at the trailhead, the gravel crunching loudly in the silence. As they stepped out, the air hit them, crisp, smelling of pine needles, damp earth, and ancient oxygen. "Okay," Elena admitted, hoisting her pack. "It smells amazing." "Told you," Maya winked. "Let's move. We need to hit the ridge before sunset." The first 6 hours were idyllic. The forest was a cathedral of light and shadow. Massive Douglas firs rose like pillars, their canopies knitting together so tightly that the sky was reduced to fracturing shards of blue. They hiked in a comfortable rhythm. Maya took point, clearing overhanging branches, while Elena stopped occasionally to sketch a particularly gnarly root system or a patch of vibrant fungi. They talked about everything and nothing: the apartment they were planning to rent, the dog they wanted to adopt, the texture of the moss. It was the kind of easy intimacy that comes from 3 years of loving someone. "You really think we can afford the place on 4th Street? Elena asked, breathless as they crested a steep incline. "If I pick up those extra shifts at the clinic and your graphic novel takes off?" "Easy," Maya said, handing her a water bottle. "We're a power couple, remember?" Elena smiled, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Right, power couple." By late afternoon, the terrain changed. The trail grew indistinct, swallowed by an aggressive growth of ferns and brambles. The trees here were older, their bark twisted and blackened, draped in Spanish moss that hung like tattered gray curtains. "Maya," Elena said, pausing, "are you sure this is the trail?" Maya frowned, checking her compass. "We're heading north-northwest. The creek should be right over this rise. Maybe the park services haven't cleared this section this year." They pushed through the brush. The air grew heavier here, humid and still. The cheerful chirping of birds that had accompanied them all morning had evaporated, replaced by a profound, heavy silence. It was a silence that felt watchful. "I don't like this part," Elena whispered, stepping over a fallen log that crumbled into wet pulp under her boot. "We're almost to the campsite," Maya promised, though her brow was furrowed. She gripped her walking stick tighter. They found a clearing as the sun began to dip below the tree line, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red. It wasn't the designated campsite marked on the map, but it was flat and near a small, trickling stream. "We'll camp here," Maya decided. "I don't want to be hiking in the dark in this terrain." They set up the tent efficiently, a practice dance of poles and canvas. Maya built a fire while Elena unpacked the food. As the flames rose, crackling and spitting, the feeling of unease that had settled over Elena began to recede, pushed back by the warmth and the smell of heating beans. "To us," Maya said, clinking her tin mug against Elena's. "To us. Elena replied, "and to never hiking this far off-grid again." They laughed, ate, and eventually curled up together in the tent. The sleeping bags were zipped together. Elena rested her head on Maya's chest, listening to the steady thump of her girlfriend's heart. It was the safest sound in the world. Elena woke up because she was cold. The fire had died down to embers, and the chill of the deep forest had seeped through the nylon walls of the tent. She shifted, reaching out to pull the blanket up, but her hand met empty space. Maya's side of the sleeping bag was empty. "Maya," Elena whispered, her voice groggy. No answer. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Maya, babe, you okay?" Silence. Elena unzipped the tent flap. The zipper sounded like a gunshot in the quiet night. She peered out. The fire was a pile of glowing orange eyes in the dark. The forest beyond was a wall of absolute blackness. "Maya," she called out, a little louder this time. Panic began to prickle at the base of her neck. Maya wouldn't just wander off. Maya was the responsible one. Then she heard it. From deep in the trees, to her left, came a sound. It was a soft, wet coughing noise. "Maya!" Elena grabbed her flashlight and scrambled out of the tent, her boots unlaced. She swept the beam across the clearing. Nothing but trees and shadows that seemed to stretch and contort. "Elena!" The voice came from the right, the opposite direction of the cough. It was Maya's voice, but it sounded flat. "Hello, Maya. Where are you? You scared the hell out of me." Elena spun around, aiming the light toward the trees on the right. "Elena, help." The voice was closer now, but something was wrong. It didn't sound like Maya in pain. It sounded like a recording of Maya in pain played back at the wrong speed. It was too smooth, lacking the jagged edge of true fear. "Maya." Elena stepped toward the tree line, her hand trembling. "Keep talking. I'm coming." She took 3 steps into the undergrowth. The beam of her flashlight caught a flash of flannel shirt. "Thank God," Elena breathed. She rushed forward. "Maya, what happened?" She stopped. Standing about 20 feet away, half obscured by a massive oak tree, was a figure. It was wearing Maya's red flannel shirt, but the shirt was hanging wrong. It was loose in places it shouldn't be, and bulged in others, as if the body underneath didn't have the right number of joints. The figure turned. Elena's breath hitched in her throat, choking her. It wasn't Maya. The face was a pale, smooth expanse of wet, grayish flesh. It had no eyes, no nose, just a mouth, a vertical slit that ran from the chin up to the forehead. The slit opened, revealing rows of translucent, needle-like teeth. "Elena," the thing said, using Maya's voice perfectly. "Help me." Elena didn't scream. Her brain simply short-circuited. The impossibility of what she was seeing froze her in place. This was a nightmare. She just had to wake up. Then, a hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Elena thrashed, a scream tearing at her throat against the calloused palm. She was hauled backward, dragged down behind a fallen log. She kicked, connecting with a shin. "Sure, it's me. It's me." The whisper was hot against her ear. Elena froze. She knew that smell: wood smoke, sweat, and vanilla deodorant. She twisted her head. It was Maya, the real Maya. Maya's face was smeared with dirt, her eyes wide with a terror Elena had never seen in her stoic girlfriend before. Maya held a finger to her lips, shaking her head frantically. "Don't make a sound." Maya pointed over the log. Elena peered over. The thing in the red flannel, where did it get the flannel, was still standing there. It tilted its head like a bird listening for a worm. "Elena," it called again. Then the voice changed. It shifted, bubbling and cracking, turning into a deep, guttural sound that vibrated in Elena's chest. A sound no human throat could make. It was a clicking, chittering growl. The creature's limbs elongated. It dropped onto all fours, its joints bending backward with a sickening snap. It began to prowl around the clearing, sniffing the air. Maya pulled Elena down into the dirt. They were pressed together, chest to chest, hidden in the recess of the rotting log. "What is that?" Elena mouthed, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," Maya breathed, her voice barely audible. "I want to pee. I heard you calling me, but then I saw you sleeping in the tent. I realized it wasn't you." Maya gripped Elena's hand so hard it hurt. "It's hunting by sound. It mimics us." A crash echoed through the clearing. The creature had found the tent. They heard the fabric rip, the snap of aluminum poles. The creature was tearing their campsite apart, searching for the meat it thought was inside. The sounds were wet and violent. "We need to move," Maya whispered. "We can't stay here. If it catches our scent." "Where?" Elena was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. "The creek," Maya said. "Water masks scent and sound. We follow the creek down. It leads to the fire road." "My boots." Elena looked down. Her laces were trailing. "Leave them loose. Just move." Maya peeked over the log. The creature was inside the ruins of their tent. It was making a low, keening sound, a sound of frustration. Now Maya signaled. They crawled. They moved on their bellies through the wet ferns, the mud soaking through their clothes. Every snapped twig sounded like a gunshot to Elena's ears. They reached the edge of the clearing and slipped into the deeper darkness of the woods. Once they were 50 yards away, Maya pulled Elena to her feet. "Run, but watch your step." They ran. It was a nightmare descent. The forest floor was an obstacle course of roots and holes. Branches whipped their faces, leaving stinging welts. They scrambled down the embankment toward the sound of rushing water. Elena slipped, sliding down a muddy slope. She slammed into a tree, the air leaving her lungs in a wheeze. "Elena!" Maya hissed, grabbing her arm. From back up the hill, a shriek pierced the night. It wasn't a mimicry this time. It was a predator realizing its prey had escaped. Screech. It sounded like metal tearing. "It hurt us," Maya said, her eyes wild. "Go, go." They splashed into the creek. The water was freezing, numbing their feet instantly, but the noise of the rushing water over rocks provided a sonic shield. They stumbled downstream, slipping on slime-covered stones, holding hands to keep from falling. They moved for what felt like hours. The cold seeped into their bones. Elena's legs burned with exhaustion. "Maya, I can't," Elena gasped, leaning against a boulder. "I can't breathe." Maya stopped, listening. The forest around them was silent again. The creature wasn't screaming anymore. "We have to keep moving, Elle. We're sitting ducks." "Just a minute." Suddenly, a voice drifted down from the canopy above them. "Babe, look at this view." It was Elena's voice. Conversational. Happy. It was a snippet of something she had said earlier that day. Elena clamped her hands over her ears. "Stop it. Stop it. It's tracking us," Maya whispered, horror dawning on her face. "It's up in the trees." Maya looked up. The flashlight beam cut through the mist. High above, straddling two branches like a grotesque spider, was the pale thing. It was longer now, its limbs stretched out to span the gap between trees. Its head hung upside down, the vertical mouth grinning. It dropped. "Move!" Maya shoved Elena hard. Elena fell into the water as the creature landed where she had been standing a second ago. The impact sent a spray of water and mud into the air. Maya didn't run. She unclipped the bear spray from her belt. The creature uncoiled, rising to its full height. It towered over Maya, easily 7 feet tall. It opened its slit mouth, and Elena's voice came out, distorted and amplified. "I love you, Maya." "Go to hell," Maya screamed. She unleashed the bear spray. A cloud of orange capsaicin fog blasted into the creature's face. The thing shrieked, a sound so high-pitched it felt like a needle in the brain. It thrashed, its claws slashing blindly. One claw caught Maya's shoulder, tearing through her jacket and flesh. Maya cried out, falling back into the water. "Maya!" Elena scrambled up, grabbing a heavy rock from the riverbed. The creature was distracted, clawing at its own face, trying to wipe away the chemical fire. Elena didn't think. She didn't possess Maya's tactical mind. She just possessed a terrifying, blinding rage born of love. She lunged forward and brought the rock down on the creature's knee with a sickening crack. The leg buckled. The creature fell into the stream. Get up! Get up! Elena screamed, grabbing Maya by her good arm. Maya was pale, clutching her bleeding shoulder. Run, Elle. Not without you. Elena hauled Maya up. Adrenaline gave her strength she didn't know she had. They scrambled up the opposite bank, away from the thrashing, screeching monstrosity in the water. They ran blindly through the brush. The trees blurred. Maya was stumbling, her weight leaning heavier on Elena. Stay with me, Maya. Stay with me. Elena chanted, almost like a prayer. I'm dizzy. Maya mumbled. We're almost there. I see a gap. I see the sky. They burst out of the dense tree line onto a gravel service road. The moonlight was brighter here, illuminating the gray strip of civilization. Which way? Elena panicked. Down, Maya gritted out. Down his car. They hobbled down the road. Behind them, in the dark tree line, the screaming had stopped. The silence was returning. That was worse. It meant it was listening again. Come on, baby, please. Elena sobbed, her arm around Maya's waist. Then she saw it, the glint of moonlight on a reflector, a mile marker, and beyond that, the dark shape of the trailhead parking lot. They reached the Subaru. Elena fumbled for the keys in Maya's pocket, her hands slick with sweat and Maya's blood. Click! She unlocked the doors. She shoved Maya into the passenger seat and ran around to the driver's side. As she grabbed the handle, she heard a whisper right behind her ear. Elena. It was so close she could feel the cold breath on her neck. Elena didn't turn around. She yanked the door open, dove inside, and slammed it shut, locking it in one fluid motion. Thud! Something slammed against the window. Elena screamed, jamming the key into the ignition. Pressed against the glass was the pale, eyeless face. The vertical mouth was open, pressing against the window like a sucker fish. It was trying to speak, but the sound was muffled. The engine roared to life. Elena threw the car into reverse. The creature clung to the door handle. Its claws scratched screeching lines into the metal. Elena stomped on the gas, spinning the wheel. The car whipped around, flinging gravel. The force dislodged the creature. It tumbled off, rolling into the dust. Elena shifted into drive and floored it. The high beams cut through the darkness. In the rearview mirror, bathed in the red glow of the taillights, she saw the figure standing in the middle of the road. It wasn't chasing them anymore. It stood perfectly still, raising one long, pale arm in a wave. Bye-bye. It mimicked in Elena's voice. They didn't stop driving until they hit the interstate 40 miles away. They pulled into a brightly lit truck stop diner. The fluorescent lights were harsh, buzzing, and absolutely beautiful. Elena turned off the engine. The silence in the car was heavy, broken only by their jagged breathing. She looked over at Maya. Maya was pale, holding a towel against her shoulder, which was soaked in red. But she was alive. Her eyes were open. We made it, Maya whispered, her voice rasping. Elena reached out, her hands shaking uncontrollably, and touched Maya's face. Just to feel the warmth, just to feel the skin, to make sure it was real. We made it, Elena sobbed. Maya leaned into the touch, closing her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about the trip. Elena let out a hysterical, wet laugh. I think next anniversary, we just go to a spa. In the city. With lots of people. Deal, Maya breathed. Elena looked out the window at the mundane world. Truckers pumping gas. A stray dog near a dumpster. The neon open sign. It all looked so fragile now. She knew what was out there in the dark, in the quiet places where the maps didn't go. She knew that nature wasn't just trees and beauty. It was old, and it was hungry, and it knew their names. But as she looked back at Maya, gripping her hand tightly, she knew something else. They had walked into the hollow, and they had walked back out. Together. Let's get you to a hospital, Elena said, her voice finding its steel. She put the car in gear, leaving the dark forest far behind them, but knowing that the sound of the wind in the trees would never sound the same again. Epilogue. 3 months later. The apartment on 4th Street was sunny. It smelled of coffee and drying paint. Elena sat at her drafting table, finishing the final panel of her new graphic novel. It was a darker story than she usually wrote. The panel depicted a dense forest, shadowy and indistinct. Hidden in the trees, barely visible unless you looked closely, was a pale, elongated shape. "Coffee's up," Maya said, walking into the room. Maya moved a little stiffer now. The scars on her shoulder were thick, jagged, ropey lines that would never fully fade. She set the mug down and kissed the top of Elena's head. "You okay?" Maya asked, noticing Elena staring at the drawing. "Yeah," Elena said. She closed the sketchbook. "Just finishing up." Maya wrapped her arms around Elena's shoulders from behind, resting her chin on Elena's head. They stayed like that for a long time, basking in the sunlight, in the noise of the traffic outside, in the glorious, crowded safety of the city. But sometimes, late at night, when the street traffic died down and the apartment settled, one of them would wake up. They wouldn't say anything. They would just reach out across the sheets, finding the other's hand, gripping it tight, listening to the silence, waiting to make sure the voice they heard in the dark was truly their own. The end. Thanks for watching my video. I will tell you more story next time.